Hello friends, it's iCave Dave here again, and we're going to talk a little bit about battlefields. We're going to plan out the planet of Cupertinus, which is going to be the home world for my chapter, which is going to be interesting. We're going to do it on paper. We're not building stuff today, but just before we do get started, I do want to say, if you are interested in winning a copy of the first issue of Combat Patrol, complete with the 2 miniatures, which is a Space Marine Captain in Terminator armor and a Tyrannid Hive Prime with wings, you can go over to the video up here, leave a comment about which chapter you would create and why, and I'll be picking the winners very, very soon, probably the end of this week, which will be the 5th of October. Let's say the 5th of October, that is going to be the closing date, and that's when I will choose the chapters. We've already had a huge amount and some really cool ones, but there is still time, so let's get into this chapter, which is the Midnight Titans. We're going to basically create our home planet. We're going to do the where the chapter comes from, the chapter headquarters. We've got some ideas for this, and as you can see here, we've got 8 squares of paper. These are all 6 inches square, and this is going to represent 2 feet, 2 feet square on each of these for our real world table. So this is actually going to be pretty big. This is going to be like an 8x4 table, and the idea here is that it's going to be modular, so you can kind of rearrange them. 4 over here are already planned out, because this is going to be the fortress, which is going to be based on Apple Park, where Apple is based, the sort of spaceship campus they call it, which I think is quite appropriate. So we're going to basically have a circular. I'm not going to be good at drawing circles because I don't think anyone is, but we're going to have it take up sort of 3/4, I think, of this space. So there is going to be exterior space, so you can go around the outside, but you'll also be able to use kind of 2 of these as like a starting point for the chapter. So this is going to be our round fortress here. Each of these will have doorways in and out. So, and they're going to be pretty big as well, so you can get tanks in and out. And also, I think we're going to have, because the history of this chapter is that they were overrun by Tyrannids, they have a history of kind of coming from the Night Lords. So they're descended from the Night Lords Chaos Space Marine chapter, which is why when I've done my miniatures for this, we have got a little bit of lightning going on the legs, so they have got that kind of Night Lords kind of feeling to them. You might also notice they have that circle on the shoulder pad. That's the chapter icon with the lightning. That is to represent this home, this fortress. That is what that is going to be from Cupertinus. These do have shaved down Aquillas. They've been taken off of the chest plate, so they're gone. And you might, if you know Apple quite well, be able to see in the background here we have AirPods Max, or at least knockoff ones. And my character is also wearing AirPods Max. Because the idea for this is that this chapter is going to have found a crashed satellite that has hit the planet, and that satellite was ejected from Earth's orbit, the orbit of Terra, back in the 21st century, and it was full. It was basically a relay satellite, but the stuff that it had buffered at the time was essentially some Apple stuff. So after the Dark Age of Technology, when the Adeptus Mechanicus have kind of rediscovered stuff, this chapter has been inspired by the Apple stuff that they found, not knowing what Apple really was at the time, which is why as well the tactical symbols on the shoulder pads is actually the share symbol from Apple devices, and things like that. So that's kind of where this is all coming from. So the chapter fortress is going to be this kind of beautiful glass kind of exterior, and it's going to have a very lush green kind of inside to the walled garden. You see where we're going with the whole Apple references here? So this is kind of the shape that we're going to have. And I think this corner here is where they were assaulted by Tyranids, and this is going to be kind of wrecked. So this one is wreckage. And then basically inside this walled garden, it's going to be beautiful and lush and green and trees. And then as soon as you get outside of it, outside of the fortress, it's almost like Hive Forge world, because they have the shame from their chapter's history with chaos and being descended from a traitor legion. They're very secretive, and anyone looking at this planet would look at it and think it is deserted, that it's been basically decimated by chaos and tyranids in the sector, and that it is entirely lifeless. But that is through some of the technology that they use to kind of cloak their planet. So they have the Space Marines, who are going to be based in here. There's also going to be my Imperial Guard, or Adeptus Militarum, I believe they're now called. They're also going to be based on this planet, so it's going to be the 1st Cupertinus Brigade, whatever we're going to call that. We haven't got to Imperial Guard yet. But in this area, so we're going to be very wastelandy out here, I would like to have their old cathedral. So basically these two here are going to be the ruins of a cathedral, and this is going to be actually based on Coventry Cathedral, which is just up the road from me, and it's going to be huge. It's going to be like 4 feet by 2 feet, pretty much. So we're going to have just the outer walls. I've taken loads of photographs. We have got a tower, which is sort of here, and then this end actually is going to come in a little bit closer, and it's got these kind of buttressed pieces here, and then there's going to be steps up to here so you can fight through it. Big buttresses coming off here, but down the center we're going to have the bottoms of the columns that would have supported the roof. There's going to be no roof on this. This is blown out. This is destroyed. You're going to have pieces of spiral staircases here and here, I think. So you're going to kind of, as if you were going up these staircases. I think that will be quite nice. And then they kind of just stop because there's nothing above them. This is my plan. And the whole idea with this is also we're going to have a launch pad, I think. Because I think the idea is that on this planet, you're going to have, this is all going to be kind of more urban stuff on these two and coming into these areas here. So we're going to have buildings. I'd like to have a canal, and the way that I want to build these is kind of, we're going to have the canal coming through here, and I think this isn't going to be a deep one, but we're going to do it that kind of way, and then I think maybe we'll have the canal disappearing into one of these quarters here, so we can actually put in a turn in the canal, and this is not going to be water. We're not going to be having water in this canal. This is going to be sludge. It's going to be industrial, because I live around Birmingham, which is kind of industrial heartland of the UK. The idea with these is that we can kind of rearrange this if we want to have the canal coming off the side of a board, if we're going to be doing that kind of stuff. The idea is that it's all going to link up, kind of the way that with modular boards you can do it with roadways. We will have some bridges, obviously, crossing this canal. We don't want it to be a huge, impossible to cross thing, so I may well put some bridge works in here. I think here maybe is where we're going to put a launch pad, and the launch pad is going to use some of the water as it's kind of cooling stuff, as they would with things like SpaceX. So we're going to have as well a lot of industrial fuel tanks, that kind of stuff around here, because you need to fuel the rockets that are going to go off. I don't really know how they normally get stuff into orbit in the 41st millennium. It's probably grav stuff, Thunderhawks, that kind of stuff. It's all kind of spacey sci-fi, doesn't really fit with actual science, but I really like this to have that based kind of, this is going to be like flame pits here, and we're going to have that kind of stuff, and maybe a tower that we can go up. So this will be a tower here, and then this will be more industrial stuff over here. So we will have a couple of bridges that can cross, and these will be big enough for tanks as well, because we want to make sure that we can get vehicles across. We want all of that sort of stuff to be able to move across it. But actually the the canal itself, the riverway, is going to be pretty much just like difficult terrain, so it just slows you down a little bit. You can cross it. It will have some depth to it as well, so you can use it as cover. I think it's going to be quite interesting. And then I think, you know, roadways themselves, I think these will probably come back together, and we'll have a roadway that goes over and links up again, so that we've got more of this kind of coming together. I think that will be quite nice. And then on this side, you know, it's gonna go into kind of buildings are going to be in these areas. Not necessarily derelict buildings. I quite like the idea of having the buildings quite intact, but also industrial, so they're quite open. So it's going to have that kind of Necromunda kind of feel going on, I think, on these areas. And then that will really contrast then, I think, with having the nice lush trees and that kind of stuff in these areas. We might even put in that apple rainbow stage kind of thing that they've got going on over here, because I do want to kind of reference a lot of the Apple stuff. If you've watched my video about the chapter history and all of that kind of stuff, we kind of got AI to write it, and the idea is also this chapter does use AI, which is very much frowned upon throughout the Imperium. So although they're a loyalist chapter, they're also, if they were discovered by the Inquisition, they would probably be purged. This is kind of what's going on here. But they just appear, they'll do their missions and disappear, and nobody really knows where they came from. Chapter banners and stuff are going to look a little bit like the Apple event invitations. So using some of those very contemporary graphics. I don't want to use particularly gothic looking fonts, even though the industrial stuff is going to look quite quite gothic. I think any fonts are going to be very clean. It's going to be like your Helveticas and your San Francisco, which is Apple's own font that they use. But this is the idea of this battlefield. So we can play a 2x4 foot combat patrol mission just throughout the cathedral. We could just use some of the industrial area. We could use half the cathedral and some canal areas, or we can rearrange this. We can leave out a couple of sides of that and just play cathedral, and this will all be modular, so everything can fit together. In terms of colours, I've not quite decided yet, but I think we're going to be going along the lines of greys, kind of not even industrial, but kind of urban kind of feel, because I would like the Imperial Guard that I do to have that kind of urban fighter kind of thing. I don't think it's going to be like Woodlands fighting. It's going to be very urban. The Cadians, which is the miniatures that are available now, they all make sense for that. So yeah, this is kind of what I've got in mind. I think this will perhaps have like a tunnel where this disappears into, so that we don't have to worry about that attaching onto other stuff. And then I'm also going to make a tunnel entrance that we can place here. If we want to use just one of the canal pieces, it could come off the side of the board and then go into a tunnel under something else. I think that will all work. But let me know if you've got any ideas for other stuff that we can put into these. I think these areas will also have some buildings going on, but obviously far more kind of industrial kind of buildings in these areas. And yeah, that's kind of what I've got in mind. Let me know what you think of the battlefield. And as I say, don't forget, you can enter our competition still. You can still win issue 1 of Combat Patrol if you get your chapter ideas in as quickly as you can over on the video that I will link up here. And thank you so much for watching. This has been fun.
For the Emperor!